Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Kia ora koutou everybody, welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. Once again, Tane is not here today. He's still in Australia having an amazing adventure. For those of you that hadn't heard last week, Tane, this is the first time Tane has been overseas. So, hey, he wasn't going to be in a podcast. He should be doing and having a great time. What have I done in the last week since I last spoke to you? Obviously, we always like to share what we put into our basket of knowledge. And I think the big thing for me in the last learning I've had over the last week is, like Rakesh said in our last podcast, is just to be kind and to smile. And I've been trying to implement that in the last week because we get so caught up in the world. You know, you see the news, you see the media, everything is doom and gloom, and people will say, "Oh, don't smile, everything is dramatic." You know, prices of things are going up. And I've tried to implement this whole smile thing, and it's been really interesting just smiling at people randomly. Sometimes people look at you weirdly, but that's okay. But more times, 9 times out of 10, people will smile back, even if they're a bit frowny. So, yeah, I think, it's pretty good just to put a smile up there because you never know. But hey, yeah, but anyway, it's not about me today. For our regular listeners, thank you for coming back. For our new listeners, welcome, and hopefully you enjoy this chat or this corridor. As you know, we scour the country, we scour the world to get people that we think are amazing. And as always, we think everyone is amazing, everyone's fantastic, but we can't have everyone on this podcast unless our name's Joe Rogan, but it's not, so we can't do that just yet. But today, we are very lucky, very privileged to invite a person that I have watched from the sidelines and seen some pretty cool things that they've done as a young adult. And it's pretty awesome that they've chosen to spend this evening chatting to us about their story. Welcome to Basket's Knowledge, Nick.
Kia ora. No, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the introduction as well. That's high praise there.
No worries. It's the truth, right? Nick, for listeners who know nothing about you, do you want to tell them who you are and what are you doing at this moment in your life, I guess?
Can do. So kia ora koutou, ko waio, ko tānou te waka, ko kapakapa nui te maunga, ko waikana te awa, ko ngā te raukaua, ko ngā te tō rangatira, ko te atiao na iwi, ko ngā te haume, te hapu, ko whakarongotai te marae, ko Nick Parata toko ingoa, nō te poti ahau. So my name's Nick. I'm from Dunedin, born and bred, but whakapapa Māori back up north to Kapiti Coast, Waikato, Wellington areas. So 100% Māori, happy to be Māori, identify as Māori, but born and bred Dunedin. What am I up to? So I'm working full-time at the PE school currently as lab technician. I was an undergraduate and postgrad student once upon a time at the PE school, so I've gone through 4 years of study, and then over summer I was lucky enough to continue that journey within research with Marcus, who you've had on the podcast before, Brajesh, and Connor, another tauira, looking at, I guess, Māori health and Māori mental wellbeing, particularly in rangatahi Māori. So I was lucky enough to carry that on over summer, and then back here at the PE school this year. So yeah, just mahi hard pretty much.
Oh, beautiful! What a great introduction, and I think we're gonna go down those different pathways as we go through our corridor today. So I guess the first question I have for you is, Nick, you are born and bred in Dunedin.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose to stay in Dunedin? You have, lots of, in my mahi that I do, I encourage people to leave home and go and explore other places to study. And for you, I mean, you have a fantastic university on your doorstep, but did you ever have thinking, actually, wait a minute, maybe I should try and go somewhere else just to leave home?
Oh, 100%. It was always on the radar, it was always on the cards, but I think personally for me, there's more to life than study. So for me personally, whanau was a big thing for me. I wasn't quite ready to fly the coop just yet. I was quite happy to stay around friends and family for a few more years and then sort of build a base and go from there. But for me, the study, what I wanted to do within PE, Auckland was probably the only other place in New Zealand that offered it. And obviously with the current world rankings that have just come out, like PE's highly regarded across the world at Otago University. So it was a bit of a no-brainer in the end to stay put and study something that's so highly acclaimed. across the world. But also, yeah, there was aspects of whanau particularly I wasn't quite ready to fly yet.
I like that because, yeah, we rankings all cool and all that kind of stuff there, but that's pretty superficial when it comes down to what your values are. And like you said, your whānau or your family were pretty important to you. And I think that's important for our listeners to think about because, for some people, they have no choice but to leave home for university because of where they live. And just the challenge that they have, your whānau is right there and you're like, I have to leave, but I don't want to leave. It's a
Yep.
pretty crazy journey, right? It's a pretty crazy journey for you to go to that. And I guess this weaves really well into the world of in your Māori world. Because in the Māori world, a lot of Māori rangatahi don't live in a place where there's a university and they've got to leave and navigate that crazy journey where especially those that are come from fully immersed kora kapapas and they've got to go to a place that's totally different.
100%. And I think for me, my Māori journey didn't start till I actually was in uni. So my
Yeah.
Māori background, so my father's Māori, mum's Pakeha, but dad, so my granddad, who I never got to meet, so dad's dad, he was in the generation where Māori was sort of bit out of them and colonization and racism was running tyrant throughout the country, throughout Aotearoa. So obviously that's of a flow-on effect through future generations. So dad's never been, he's gone to Te Reo courses and done stuff like that, but he hasn't had the opportunity to sort of be immersed in that area, and that affected me. Obviously, I didn't have that opportunity. Dunedin being majority Pakeha, there weren't many opportunities. There was like kapahaka at school, but again, there's the whole issue with identity. Obviously, not looking Māori enough, not feeling Māori enough to sort of open up into those spaces. So for me, my Māori journey was non-existent within high school, within secondary school, primary school, all the way through. And it wasn't until second year uni that I actually sort of uncovered that a bit more. So definitely for rangatahi Māori, it's a lot, you want to be comfortable, but there are times where you need to spread your wings, I guess, and try and leave and start a pathway for you, your whānau, and for the future.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that because a lot of people just assume that when you're born into a culture, you assimilate to the culture and life carries on. But as you mentioned, in a lot of the colonized worlds, if you didn't look, say, speak, or feel what the colonizer, whether it's the British, the Portuguese, the Spanish, whoever the
Mhm.
colonizers were, whichever part of the world you are from, we forget about that generation just had to just to survive. It's basically survival essentially. And the
Mm.
generation after the ones who go, okay, we don't know what we don't know, and it's no one's fault here. So it's really beautiful to hear that you've picked up your roots. They've always been there, but now you're showing the world what they are. But I guess the question for you is, you're living in a world where you haven't had to really live in that world. What is it in university that just went, actually, wait a minute, this is part of me, and I'm not afraid to go down this pathway here?
Oh, 100%. Really good question. Upon reflect, I always reflect on this like quite often whenever I'm delving into Māori research or areas that involve tikanga Māori, kaupapa Māori. So my journey probably was enlightened first sort of taken place within Specs 206, so a Māori PE and health paper that was delivered through the PE school at the time. So that was run by AMJ, Anne-Marie Jackson, absolute GOAT, one of the absolute legends of University of Otago. So she was the paper coordinator at the time, and she was amazing. She just was so, you literally had all walks of life. So it wasn't just a Māori PE and health paper. It was very inclusive, supportive for anyone. Obviously, people had to do certain papers to fill their majors and to complete their minors and stuff like that. So it wasn't just directed at Māori. It was very much open to people who were wanting to learn more about Māori culture, Māori PE and health in particular. So that was where it sort of started. So got to learn more. We started with whakapanaungatanga, so building relationships within your groups, within your classmates, and then also sort of building on your knowledge of who you are, where you come from. And that was the building block, and that was sort of the light bulb moment for me. Was like, actually, I am Māori. Like I've always known I'm Māori, but this is the time where I'm like, actually, you know what? I'm going to try and delve into it a bit more, and I want to learn a bit more and try and expand my mātauranga, my Māori knowledge, and sort of go from there. So 206 was that stepping stone into that, and then obviously led me into 306 the following year, with Chanel Phillips, Dr. Chanel Phillips, and then that led me into postgrad studies and also some internship with with Chanel under AMJ, and then obviously Jeremy Hapita, Associate Professor Jeremy Hapita came in there near the end, helped me a lot with my honours dissertation in 2022 now. And then that sort of it's all been go from there really.
No, beautiful. And this is really cool because we've spoken about the academic journey that you've had. But what about your personal journey? Because the academic journey is one thing. You go to class, you do your thing, but as a young adult now, because you're being formative now, you go, right, cool, I've lived this world here. And there would have been some things that would have been confronting for you as a young person as you go through this journey. And what is it like for you as a person as opposed to academic?
Yeah, really good question. So I think it's again going back to the idea around you don't it's all about identity. You
Yeah,
don't you're Māori, but sometimes particularly when you're younger, you don't look Māori, you don't feel Māori, you don't sometimes might not identify as Māori just because you don't feel connected, you don't have that identity. So for me, that 200 level helped with the personal identification of myself, being like, yes, I am Māori. I'm happy to be Māori. I'm proud to be Māori, and sort of I was able to embrace it a bit more. So both from an academic and personal aspect. I was attending National Māori Hockey Tournament when I was in year 13, so that was 2018. That was sort of my first taster, and I was like, this is awesome. But again, you go up to those tournaments and you stick out like a sore thumb because you are from Dunedin, you are of lighter skin tone than others.
yeah.
So you go into those environments and it's like, I'm Māori, like why do I feel out of place? Why do I feel whakama about going up to people and like talking to them and saying hi? Um, so it wasn't that journey, it was there. I knew it was there and I was wanting to go on it, but I just needed that sort of extra push to sort of help me along. And 206 was that building bridge, that stepping stone. So when I went back to Māori tournament, I've been to Māori tournament ever since, but after I'd done 206, I went back with I guess, a greater expansion of my knowledge, of my understanding of who I am, where I'm from, which allowed me just to play better hockey, so sport-wise, but also better connections for whanau within teams, within teammates, and with everyone that attended that tournament.
And it's so crazy, the ripple effect. The ripple effect, both positive and negative, the ripple effect of the cultural construct of what you look like defining your culture. If someone just looks at you or looks at someone and they base their whatever they're based on your looks, the world would be a crazy place. But the sad thing is, as we grow up, we also take those on ourselves. As you took that upon yourself, you're like, actually, this is the way the world has looked at me and said my story is. And now
Yeah,
you've got to redefine your story, which is not, it's a redefinition, but actually a refining your story of who you are, which is pretty crazy in the world that we live in.
100%. I think it's also the idea of like it's always come up in Kōrero before. It's like how Māori are you? So like how
Yeah,
much percentage genealogy and that was always a common question that I asked myself. It's like how much Māori am I? And again, it wasn't until I went to university and I heard from AMJ herself, where she was like, it doesn't matter how much Māori, whether you're 50%, whether you're only from your dad's side, both sides, doesn't matter. You are Māori. That doesn't change. And it was that's again that light bulb moment where I was like, do you know what? Actually, she's right. Like
yeah,
it doesn't every time I get asked or get like are you Māori? Are you sure you're Māori? It's like, yeah, 100% I am. It's like, don't you
yeah.
dare even try and question me. It's like I am proud. So it's those moments there that you really reflect on and you go, yeah, no, she's right. Like I need to take more pride in myself and don't let anyone sort of push back on me.
And it's so funny because I said that to you because I grew up in Zimbabwe. I grew up during the time when there was apartheid in South Africa, and I always say this to people that in South Africa, um, you knew racism, you knew straight away. There was no black or white, straight away, right? Cool, it is what it is, right? And then I'm not saying it's good or bad. It was just this is it. You just knew where you stood. There was no question mark. When I came to New Zealand, this is when my mind was just blown when somebody started to talk about fractions of of what you won. I was like, what is
Yep.
it? What are you talking about? You won 16th, 116th. I was like, does it actually matter? Like, does
Yep.
it actually matter? And that's when my mind is blown. I talk about a conversation I had with a young person 2 years ago, and he had just discovered that he was Maori. He had just same thing, exactly same story as like many young people of the same generation. He just discovered that he was Maori, but he's blonde, blue-eyed, super
Yep.
fair, like super fair. And he said to me, "Hey, Prajesh, I don't think I can claim anything with Maori." And I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because I've just discovered it now." And I was like, "Cool. Do you want to go on this journey here?" And I
Yep.
was like, "Yeah, I do." And I was like, "Well, so tick that box." But he felt guilty. He felt this guilt,
Yep.
and yeah, the guilt. I mean, I can't talk about that there, but the guilt is really interesting. It's such an interesting thing that you're guilty for your percentage makeup, which is really crazy, right?
Yep. And yeah, and it's like it's almost beaten into us from so early, like the ripple effects of colonization still occur to this day. And it's like, yes, we're getting better as a society, as a culture, like we're thriving more than ever. But there are still those moments and those instances where it always comes back to like, oh, how Māori are you? Like it's like, why should it matter? And it's
Yeah,
100%. It comes down to your looks, your identity, um, and it's shit. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
you can say whatever you want. There's no, this
Yeah,
is
shit. It's awful. It's horrible.
yeah,
But again, it's just one of those things that we have to deal and overcome with, and eventually it will get better. But yeah, it's tough.
yeah. I challenged someone the other day who said to me, he was asked a question. So they were asked a question, how modern they were. I was like, did you ask the person how white they were?
Yep.
Like, can I do that? I was like, well, they're asking the same question, so you can ask them the same question. And
Yep.
they're like, really? I was like, it's the same thing, right? It's because if you're playing the game there, then both parties should be able to play the game.
Oh,
Yep,
100%. 100%. Fair is fair.
fair is fair, exactly. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure we'll come back to that there, but I want to delve a little bit into your. You mentioned this very briefly, but you're very humble. Let's talk about the delve and your passion for the sport of hockey, because that's something that you are. That's part of your life as well. That's part of who you are. When did you
Like,
start getting to that there?
Um, yes, hockey, big part of my life, family as well. So dad is a very good hockey player, or was a very good hockey player. So he played NZ Masters back when I was only a newborn, so when I was pretty young. So he was NZ Masters. He's played club hockey for the last however long I've been around for the last 30 years or so.
Oh wow, yeah,
Um, so he's always been involved in that space. So I sort of picked it up when I was at primary school. I remember one of my very first trainings, I guess you could call it. It was out on grass out at Tyree, out at Memorial Park.
the good
And
old days with grass, eh?
yeah, grass hockey is like when someone comes up to me, is like, how long have you been playing hockey for? Oh, since it was on grass. Um, but I remember my first training, I said to dad, we went away and I was like, oh, this is awful. I hate it. Like, no fun whatsoever. It's just like, didn't like playing on the grass. But I always go down to the turf with them on a Saturday or a Sunday and have a hit around with them on the actual, like, at the time was sand based.
Yeah,
So I was always there or thereabouts, but didn't start properly playing until I was year seven. So I was 10 or 11. Um, so year seven was my first year at Cabinet College here in Dunedin, now Trinity. Um, First year playing, was lucky enough to make Otago under 13s. And that was a complete shock to me. I didn't know a single person. And I was a very shy person when I was younger. So I hated the thought of, I got really homesick when I was young. So I hated the thought of going away from mum and dad to a tournament with boys that I didn't really know. And I had to room with one of them in our dorms. And the thought was killing me. And I was like, I'm so happy that I made this team. But again, I just like did not want to go. Um, but once I got over it, once we were there, it was sweet. Didn't want to leave. And then that's sort of where it all flourished. So I've been lucky enough to be involved within rep teams ever since I was in year seven, all the way through from under 13 to seniors to open men's. Um, and yeah, I've been able to meet some awesome people, been able to go to some pretty cool places across the country. I think I've been to almost every single place in New Zealand that's got a hockey turf.
well,
Um,
brilliant.
there's not many places I haven't been to. And then last year was lucky enough. to be a part of the Otago A team that won national seniors, national hockey championships for Tier A, for Tier 1. So that was a pretty cool experience. It was my first time being in the team, being in that sort of high elite environment. Particularly being Māori, was super stoked. But yeah, it was awesome to be in that environment and to come away with a win. The boys won it 2 years previously, so they went back to back. It was just an awesome experience to be a part of, and that's probably the highlight of my hockey career so far.
Yeah, beauty, beauty. And I think what I liked there was actually the whole start of the journey. The whole start of the journey was I didn't like this sport, terrible, right?
Yep.
And a lot of us will give up at that point that, in anything we do in life, if we don't like it, we give up straight away. But it was pretty awesome that you carried on. But also, awesome, great, beautiful. Then you get selected for a team. This happens to all of us. We get selected. And, yeah, this is amazing. Oh, damn it, I have to leave home now for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that again, I think this is important for us to realize that everyone thinks everything's all hunky dory and nice and easy, but we all go through these journeys here, which are really challenging at that point in time. If we take Nick at that stage, you'd be like, why am I here? Maybe I should just not do this here. But you get over it and you go on. And if at that point you had said to your whanau, hey, I'm not doing this here, you wouldn't be where you are today. So, and like you said before, this highlight that you had, just recently when that happened. So it's really the testament to the ups and the downs that people have. But it's just something that we all go through. And then you've also been involved in the Māori men's hockey team. What has that been like for you? Because you're navigating two worlds here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was lucky enough. So first Māori, as I said earlier in the podcast, so first Māori tournament was 2018. Went away, didn't really have any expectations, didn't know what to expect. Again, didn't know the team, but older now, so got over the homesickness, but didn't know any of the team apart from one person, who was a guy from down here, Dylan Thomas. Was sort of just going in with open eyes, see what happens. Was lucky enough to get selected in both the NZ under-21s and NZ Māori senior Tāne team, which was completely, as I said, unexpected. I was sort of just went to go play hockey, have a bit of fun. But obviously, they saw something that they liked, and I was selected in both the junior and the senior Māori team, which was lucky enough to go away and play a few fixtures against the likes of Australian country. So we played them in Rotorua. And then also an Australia country under-21 team that came across pre-COVID days. So from there, I was like, obviously got hooked on the bug. We was, oh yeah, I want to do this again. Like, this is awesome. I want to try and excel my skills as much as possible. But it was the tournament itself that actually made you want to come back. It wasn't the achievements or the recognition that you got from playing well. It was the actual environment, the whanau within your teammates, within other teams. On the field, it's a war. Like, you battle against brothers, and then when you come off it, it was always a beer and a chill out and have a chat and have a laugh about stuff that happened throughout the game. So it's that environment going into it that's like, you know what, this is awesome. Like, I want to keep coming back to it. It's not about the recognition of the achievements at the end of the day. It's the environment that they've created with that tournament.
Which is very, very cool. It's like when you go to any event, the event is awesome, but if the organizers make you feel really welcome and really part of the community, it just changes the whole thing. It's a bit like how when I got into CrossFit, I would avoid competitions until I went to my first one, and then I was like, holy smokes, the workouts are hard, but nobody actually thinks about that. There's all these crazy people. Some of them are super fit. Some of them are not, basically can't do a push-up, but everybody comes together and has a great time and supports everybody. As you said before, when you're on the competition floor, everyone's grinding and trying to beat you, but the minute it goes off, everyone's just hugging each other. But also, I don't know whether it's the same in hockey, but in CrossFit as well, when you're struggling, the other competitors come in, they help you out and they cheer you on, which is really, really cool. Not that I'm a CrossFit champion, but it was really cool to get involved in that environment. Then it's like you said before, it's the environment as opposed to the actual sport, unless of course you're trying to aim to be the best. But even then, you have the environment. Talking about that there, so what has it been for you like when you go hockey as a passion, but now it's also you start looking at it as an elite sport as well, because it's not social now. What have you had to change in your mindset around that there?
If any. I don't think the mindset's changed too much, to be fair. for me personally, it's always been drilled into me by mum and dad that sport is a hobby and a pastime. For some, or for most people, sorry, it's not a job.
Yep.
Um, so for me, I was always growing up and I always said, I'm used to play rugby back in the days. Oh, I'm going to be the next Dan Carter. I'm going to be the next Jimmy Cowan, I think it was at the time. Like I'm going to be the next All Black 9-10. And then everyone kept growing. I stayed short, so I stopped playing rugby and then picked up hockey. And that's, oh yeah, I'm going to play for the Black Sticks one day. And you quickly find out like the ones that play to that elite level, to the national level, go to World Cups, they are a different breed. They
Yep.
are cut from a different cloth compared to your regular, like everyday Joe that wants to play hockey and is decent at it. So from an early age, mum and dad have always said, like, look, it's all good that you're happy with this, but don't put all your eggs into one basket when it comes to hockey. Particularly, it's not a well-funded sport within New Zealand. There's not a lot of money going around. If you were all going well, if you were to make that elite level, top level, you'd probably have to work another job in behind the scenes to actually pay for it.
Yeah.
And that's always stuck with me is like I've always wanted to go as high as I can, achievement wise. But at the back of my head, or at the front of my head, forefront, I'm like, I know this isn't going to be a career that I can live off. Like it's something just I'd like to do. So I've always had other hobby. I've always had work. I've always had the study to go back on. They've been my main focus, and then hockey's sort of been secondary. And it's just been fortunate enough that I've still been able to achieve to quite a high level, still get selected for some pretty good teams. But it hasn't always been the main focus. There's always been other things in the background that have taken priority.
And that's really cool perspective because I think a lot of people think that because you enjoy something that you can't enjoy something else. And it reminds me of when Kobe Miller was on here on the podcast as well. Kobe's
Yes.
a high level rower as well, but he also said in the podcast that rowing is a short term thing.
Yep.
He's got to get his degree, and I don't know if you know Fred Vassiver. He's in Dunedin as well, and he's the same as well. He's a high level rower, and he goes, "Yep, I'm stopping rowing this year because I need to focus on my academics because that is what's going to get me places later
Yep.
on after my rowing career." And it's really important to put that perspective in because a lot of people think that hey, sports is in New Zealand specifically, because we're not a
Yep.
well-funded country, and unless you're a super elite All Black, it's pretty hard.
Yep.
Get into that space there. So it's important for people to listen to them and go, actually, hey, wait a minute, it's not bad for me to enjoy studying while I am playing sport. You can have both.
100%.
You can have both.
100%.
Yeah. Um, I'm not going to swing back a little bit and come back to your academic side. So
Mhm.
Specs 206 was I guess the initiator for your Māori awareness.
Yep.
And that's cool. That's awesome. But you didn't just go, right, cool, I just want this to be of myself. You then wanted to do more research into what is the fire to do the research? Because some people might go, cool, I'm doing my own journey and I'm going to go through my own journey. But you've decided actually, while I'm doing my journey, I want to also explore other people's journey in the same thing. How has that been for you? And what is, yeah, why would you do that there? Like, why would you just go, hey, I want to do this as well?
You're very good at asking questions. It's a very, very good question. I can see you've had some practice. Um, yeah, I mean, particularly within Māori, it is well known that within Māori health statistics, like Māori are more likely or have a higher, greater chance of dying earlier than Pakeha. Same with encountering diseases such as cancer, lung cancer, stuff like that, a lot earlier than Pakeha. So for me, again, going back to sort of my journey at the very start, I didn't meet neither of my dad's parents, grandma, granddad from dad's side. So both of them passed away from a form of cancer. I can't remember which. I think granddad was lung cancer. I think grandma might have been the same. They're both smokers. So for me, not being able to meet them and then hearing from dad like, oh, they would have loved to meet you. It's like it gets you emotional. And you're like, shit, that sucks. Like they didn't even get to meet me. Like they both passed away sadly before I was even born. Um, so it's like it's a big what if, like if we did change, or if we were more focused on Māori health and able to sort of offset those health inequities, would I've been able to? And it's a big question and a loaded question to sort of put on yourself. But at the same time, it's something that gives you that drive and motivation to actually try and make change. So for me, I was like, okay, how can we help Māori communities for my research, the path I wanted to go down for my honours was how can we help, or how can I potentially help Māori to decrease health inequities? And I was looking at it, and from 206 and 306, what I learned was there aren't a lot of Māori health initiatives. So a lot of the research is primarily focused on Pakeha. So I was like, okay, I'm going to almost flip it on its head. I want to look at what they've done and compare it to if we took it from a Māori, kaupapa Māori based approach, how would that change, or how would that differ in terms of the results? Like, we know what we know, but what if we put a kaupapa Māori spin on it? And that's sort of what I did for my honours. So I looked at kiorahi, whether the traditional Māori game of kiorahi could be an accurate way to assess aspects of fitness. So I looked at upper body, lower body strength, power, endurance, and then took those measurements from a
Can I pause you for a second? For
yeah,
our people that are not from New Zealand, do you want to explain what kura is? Because they'll be like, "What are you talking about?" Just for some context.
100% aroha mai. So kia ora is a traditional Māori ball game. Is growing in popularity. So pretty much the game is based off a pūrākau or a cultural narrative. And the game itself, hard to explain, even harder to play, but incorporates a lot of different aspects from a multitude of different sports. So the pūrākau helps the shaping of your understanding of how to play the game. So the pūrākau has certain aspects that are highlighted within the game, including rules, the teams, and so on and so forth. So I looked at that game within my honours dissertation.
Cool.
Um,
What we'll do
and
is we'll put a link in the show notes for those of you that want to see what the game is all about. So you can understand why it's not just a game. There's a lot more than the game.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that was the other aspect that I tried to highlight when looking at hauora, looking at health. It's not just the physical, but it's also the spiritual connections. So it's like the ones that potentially people that are more they understand the game better would have a greater connection to the game and have greater health benefits from it. So that was all the like different aspects that we sort of looked at within the research.
Oh, beautiful. And what is something that was really clearing for you when you were doing that there?
Making me reflect 2 years ago on
Yeah,
my research.
yeah,
We looked at the correlations, so relationships between the data collected from a lab setting and then data that was collected from kiorahi. We found that there were correlations across, I think, all bar two um, relation or correlations that we looked at. There was always a strong correlation or moderate correlation. So we found that there are similarities and there are ways that we can incorporate kiorahi, not just kiorahi, but other like traditional Māori taonga treasures, so something like kapahaka or poitoa. Um, Potentially there might be links, if there's links in kiorahi, maybe there as well. But just incorporating more kaupapa Māori approaches seem to have more benefit than just chucking someone into a lab and testing how powerful they are, or how endurance wise, how good they are on a treadmill. So we might be able to get people fitter, or might be able to get people more fit through those kaupapa Māori approaches, whilst touching on that spirit, like different pillars of hauora.
You know what's so cool about that? That this is awesome research in the world, in the Māori world. But it gets me to think about, if you think about a lot of New Zealand is this very diverse country. But if you think about if we work with our Pacifica, our Asian communities, our Indian communities, if we then work in the space of their indigenous sports,
100%.
what are we going to get there? Because we'll have a whole different, rightly or wrongly, we all have the Western sports, which are, your cricket, your hockey, those things there. But if you introduce a sport that was solely relatable to that indigenous culture, would we see that actually will increase the activity, which will then decrease the health outcomes later on? I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. But obviously, would people do that there? I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. And that was sort of the ponder this question, like for the future researchers, like if this was a viable option, like we could apply this not just Pacific Islanders, but can like over in like Canada, so like the
First Nations.
Yeah, thank you. So I try like apply it for them, and all across the world. Like it doesn't just have to be Māori, but other Indigenous communities across the world.
Yeah, and that's because as you said before, there's an epidemic of health inequalities, especially in a lot of minority communities and also ethnic communities around the world. If you think about where ethnic communities are, they're all the negative health stats. But if you go actually let's go right back and think about where we've come from,
Like,
um, it's pretty logical, but it's also there's so much stacked against logic.
yeah, definitely. And I think that's another issue that we as Māori or Māori communities have to always have to, there's always a pushback, there's always a resistance to these ideas and trying to put them forward. And obviously money makes the world go round. So there's
Yeah,
always going to be resistance to funding and stuff like that because nothing comes free. And it's always some challenge after another. There's always a speed bump, there's always a roadblock.
yeah,
So then it's like, okay, how do we overcome this so we can still deliver for our Māori communities?
that's right. That's right. And if you reflect on your own journey over the last few years and you think about the space that you work in, um, what is the most um, when you reflect back, I think about something that just makes you smile and go, actually, this is really cool that things are changing in that space for you.
So we had Weber University from Utah, I think it was Utah, come over, well, 2, 3 weeks ago. Pardon me. They came over 2 or 3 weeks ago and they were here just for like a university tour. They went through other departments. Um, but they came here and I think they were looking at Indigenous research or in that sort of field. So Chris Budden was leading out on that with through the PE school, and he asked me, so, "Oh, would you be happy to deliver, like, teach and deliver kia ora for these students?" I was like, "Yeah, it'd be awesome." So went out to AU Fields, North Ground Fields, just across the road, told them the pūrākau, took them through step by step. And I don't think I've seen a group across my whole entire time pick up the game quicker than what they did. And I
Oh
don't think I've
wow.
had any more questions asked before about kia ora than what they did in the space of about 5 minutes. So we've taught this in 102 labs before, and nothing against the students. I love the 100 level students that come through. They're enthusiastic, but sometimes it's a wee bit because it is such a confusing game. It's quite hard to pick up, but they just picked it up within a blink of an eye and we're straight into it. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, holy crap. I was like, this is awesome. Like they're straight into it. They're asking questions. And then immediately it's also like, are we keeping scores? Like they're a competition. And it's immediately I was like, oh my God, this is the best day. I was like, the biggest smile on my face. And I replied to them in an email and I was like, you guys have been one of the best groups we've ever taught for kia ora. And they were asking about taking it back over, like
Oh wow.
the processes of like, how do we get our own kits? Like, can we make our own kits? Like, what's the protocol about delivering it? Like, do we have to say the karakia at the start? That I said, and they're asking all the right questions. You could not wipe the smile off my face for the whole entire day. I think that would have to be the coolest sort of journey where it's like, do you know what? There are people outside of Aotearoa that care about Indigenous communities just as much as the people that I situate myself with. And
Yeah,
it's that hope of being like, do you know what? Like we can, as a community, as a culture, as a country, we can grow. There are opportunities to grow. We just need to let it flourish.
that's awesome. In a year's time, we'll see Nick Parata at University of Utah having
Oh,
the senior
they
coach for the Kia ora team.
they said as a joke, they're like, "Oh, we have to fly you over so you can teach some more people over there." I was like, oh, I wouldn't be opposed to it as long
Exactly. Like you're like, here's my details. Off we go.
yeah. But
Which is
no, it was
great.
awesome. And they were, yeah, as I said, they were an amazing group. Just wanting to learn, wanting to know more about Māori culture and very open to it.
But I think what we've also got to reflect on, think about, it's also your teaching because obviously your passion would have come through your attachment to not just the sport, but the story around the sport comes through. And the reason I say that to you is because lots of times we forget that as teachers, as holders of knowledge, when you pass it on, if you just pass it on for the sake of passing it on, the people are just considering it like whatever. But if you pass it on and they see the passion, they see where it comes from. So that changes the whole narrative. So, you know, hopefully you've given yourself a bit of a pat on the back to go, hey, actually, this is really cool for me to show this to other communities because of my passion. So yeah, well done on that, Nick.
Cheers. No,
Um,
appreciate it.
I'm gonna obviously I've been stalking you quite a bit. Because why not? You have to stalk someone for a podcast. You quite openly on your LinkedIn, you have a whakatauki that is just out there and it's boom, this is it. Do you want to tell us about why you've chosen? I mean, you've written about that on LinkedIn, but I want you to tell us about why you've chosen that particular whakatauki to be your if you can remember it. You might be like, I did this 5 years ago.
So yeah, sorry, I'm gonna be fake here for a minute. I'm just gonna double check. I'm pretty sure I know what one it is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really beautiful. Yeah, it's really beautiful as well.
yeah, 100%. I think for me, my again, going back to the idea of my journey, both culturally, but also from day dot to where I am now. I don't just thank myself. Like I understand that I've put myself in this position, but it's not due to me alone that I've got here. It's the support from my mum and dad. It's support from my sisters. It's support from my extended whanau, from my friends, from previous relationships, current relationships that have got me to this point. And it's understanding that, yes, I've got here, but if it wasn't for everyone else in behind the scenes that have helped raise me, uh, teach me lessons, all that sort of stuff, then I wouldn't be in this position. I wouldn't be as privileged as I am now. So I guess for me, that whakatauki is just, yeah, acknowledging them just as much as I should acknowledge myself.
Yeah, which is I think a lot of us don't do that there, and I think it's awesome that you have that there. And I remember when Professor Harleen Hayne was the Vice Chancellor, and when she would come to parents' evenings, I remember her story. She would always say to people that you if you choose to come to university, you're at university because lots of people have sacrificed for you to get there. And to me, that was a great reminder that, you know, we are where we are because lots of people before us have sacrificed, and to get just where we are, they have not been able to enjoy the fruits of their sacrifice, but we get to enjoy the fruits of their sacrifice, you know. And again, it's a great reminder, and your whakatauki is just a beautiful reminder that actually, hey, we are here, but we're not here by ourselves. We're here because lots of other people have got us here, which is a good reminder and a good reflection for anybody to remember, you
100%.
know, especially especially in a world where a lot of us are now so self-absorbed. Woe me, woe me, woe me. We
Yeah.
actually wait a minute. There's no woe me. It's wow, wow, wow. I'm here. You know, it's pretty crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
But
And I think the other thing as well is the I don't like saying the society, but the world around us is like there are times you have to be selfish and you have to put
yeah,
yourself first, and that's all well and good. But I feel like the ones that thrive and survive the best are the ones that are selfish sometimes and then also recognize the support from behind the scenes that they've got to get to where they are,
yeah,
whether it be work institutions or yeah, whanau. So I think those are the individuals that thrive the most.
yeah. And I like that because sometimes you have to be selfish to help other people. You know,
Yes.
if you're not selfish, then you are actually causing more harm. And the example everyone always uses is the airplane one. If you first put your oxygen mask first, that's a selfish moment. You're saving yourself. But if you don't save yourself, you can't save anyone else around you. So, you know, it's important to have that balance there.
Yep, 100%, definitely.
Nick, we've been speaking for almost 50 minutes, you know, as the conversation has just been flowing, which is really, really great. And you know, we can touch on so many different things. But I want to start thinking about the podcast with a question that we ask every single one of our guests. Our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge, and
Yep.
every week we invite our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our kete or basket. Um, Feel free to share a piece of knowledge that myself, Tane, or it could be any part of your life. It could be your journey to tell Māori. It could be the hockey, well, anything.
Oh, oh God, I wish I did a bit of research for this. I want to come up with something that can be used worldwide, can use globally. One Piece.
I'll give it to you. You can give it to you. I'll give it to you because it's a Monday.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I think. Oh, that's such a good question. I love that question so much. I think for me, if we're gonna reflect on what I've been talking about within the corridor, within the podcast, going back to that whakatauki, I think, is a good way to sort of round it off and sort of bring everything full circle, is recognize, like, understanding that you are here because of the achievements that you've done and the mahi that you've put in, but don't sort of wander away from the bigger picture. Like, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Don't toss everyone else to the side that's helped support you to get to where you are. Give them the recognition they deserve, to boost yourself higher up. I think I can't remember the whakatauki, the Māori version, but it's if you were to bow your head, let it be to a lofty mountain. And that's the same sort of principles. Like, if you're going to bow your head, let it to be someone higher up, so the ones that have put you into that position.
That's really, really beautiful. And it's a great reminder for anyone listening that yes, we're all ambitious. Yes, we all have goals. Yes, we all want to achieve something in our lives, whatever that looks like. But we always have to remember that there's going to be people that have helped us to get to where they could be your whanau, they could be your friends along the way, they could be a stranger. Sometimes a stranger comes along into your life when you least expect it, and they will change your trajectory. And it's important for us. We don't have to go out there all the time and thank them, but sending someone a thank you message or thank you email randomly with no expectation costs nothing. And even to your parents, texting your parents to go, hey, thank you.
Yep.
And they might go, what for? And you just go, no reason, just thank you.
Yep.
That's a powerful message.
And it's the same thing that you said at the start of the podcast, is like just someone passing you on the street, just giving them a friendly smile. Like, they might be having an absolute shit of a day, and like that smile or that wee acknowledgement could be all that they need to sort of perk them up a wee bit, and they can go home happy. So it's just, it's wee selfless things like that make the world a difference to some people.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And the reason I say it's crazy is because it's crazy beautiful. It's crazy beautiful in the context that we have so many people out there doing some amazing things for charity, which is amazing. But then they talk about it in a great way, as in, I've done this. And I was like, oh, do we need to boast about it? We just say we've done it, and that's it. Cool.
Yep.
I have a bit of a conundrum with that all the time. I'm like, oh, it's such a crazy paradox.
Yeah, but then it goes back to that whole idea of sometimes you need to be selfish and you need to acknowledge
100%.
the work that you've done. So again, it's a very fine line between being arrogant or like actually recognizing and it being the right time, right place.
Totally beautiful. Nick, anything else that you'd like to just share with us, that's really on your mind that you want to put out there before we wrap up?
Nothing that I can think of. Just, Nui, thank you very much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've been watching these in the background, and I've always seen you and Tane doing very, very well. So I'm privileged to be on here and to be able to speak to you today.
No, it's our privilege. It's our honor. It's been a few weeks coming, but everything has a time and a place, and I think this is the right time and right place for this to happen. Thank you for jumping on. I've learned a lot about you as a person. I've seen, like I said before, I've seen you in the background. Marcus always speaks really highly of you. He's spoken highly of you for a very long time, and I can see why. People look up to you. So it's really beautiful to have you on here, and thank you for sharing your story. And we look forward to seeing what happens next with you in your world. University of Utah, here we come.
Maybe we'll see.
Exactly. To our listeners, hopefully you found this podcast interesting, informative, and also reflective. If you haven't, go back and listen again, because there's some pretty interesting and really valid points here. And don't listen to it on 2x speed, because that's not going to get you anywhere. Till next time, thank you, Nick, for jumping on. Till next time, everybody, don't forget to put something in your basket of knowledge. And like Nick said, don't forget to acknowledge the people in your world, because you aren't where you are. You aren't where you are because of yourself. Others have helped along the way. Till next time, ka kite. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.